please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Latta and he scored! And we're live. Hey everybody. So recently I've been thinking a lot about trades, and some trades that have worked out really, really well. Other trades that were huge mistakes and did not go the way that at least one of the teams involved wanted them to go at all. And, obviously there's been a lot of those over the years. And, there's always the trades that people talk about as like the really, really bad ones. But I was thinking of one that when, looking back on it, it's a really, really bad deal. And is one of the more lopsided trades in recent memory, but doesn't really get talked about that much. And is kind of one of those forgotten really, really bad trades. And that is the deal that sent Martin Erat to the Washington Capitals along with Michael Latta in exchange for Filip Forsberg. Now, before we get fully into this, I just have to ask that you please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already, as that greatly helps out the channel and is much appreciated. But let's get into it here. So at the time, we have to go back to April of 2013. And it was a trade deadline deal on April 3rd, which the trade deadline was pushed significantly further back because it was 2013, the shortened season because of the lockout. So the trade deadline was the beginning of April. And the Washington Capitals had a good team that was, a division-leading team, and was a team that was looking to go deep into the playoffs, that was looking to, win a Stanley Cup, and they were one of the top teams still in the Eastern Conference. This was certainly still in the heyday of the, Ovechkin Washington Capitals, and it made sense for them to go out and get a guy like Martin Erat, because Martin Erat, at that time, was a guy who had played a number of seasons with the Nashville Predators. He had multiple 20-goal seasons. He was consistently a 50-point player every year. He was in 2011, 2012, the year before, he had 58 points for the Preds. And he was a really, really good player. And, he was an important second-line level guy that Washington could add to their lineup and would really be an offensive boost to that group. And Filip Forsberg was a highly, highly touted prospect. He was the 11th overall pick in 2012 by Washington. He was probably Washington, certainly one of their best prospects. Michael Latta, I'm not going to talk about as much because he was kind of a throw-in in this deal, and he pretty much ended up being more of an AHL player than an NHL player. He did play some NHL games, but I think he was only up for like a year and a half, and he spent way more time in the AHL. So this trade really came down to being about Martin Erat to the Capitals, Filip Forsberg to the Nashville Predators. And that's what makes it so bad, because at the time it certainly made sense. Forsberg wasn't NHL ready yet. Washington was looking for a guy who could play on their second line, who could score, and add offense to that group and be a big help deep into the playoffs and possibly go out and win a Stanley Cup. So at the time it made sense, but looking back on it, and obviously we have 20/20 hindsight now of how everything has worked out since then, but this is a really, really bad deal for the Washington Capitals. And one of the main reasons I think this one doesn't get talked about as much, and Washington doesn't really get, blamed, or, people aren't all over the Capitals, because even after this deal, Washington's still been good. Obviously, they're in the playoffs every year. They won the Stanley Cup in 2018, so it's not like it was a franchise-destroying trade. And Washington's still been really, really good since then, so that's why I don't think they take as much heat for this deal as they would if, say, Forsberg went on to become the player that he is, and Washington has now, become a bottom-feeding team. I think they'd be getting ratioed for this deal, but they're still good, so that hasn't really happened. But at face value, it's still a really bad deal for the Washington Capitals. And what happened was, after, being a 50-point guy and having a very, very good career with Nashville, Martin Erat goes to Washington and plays 9 regular season games at the end of the 2012-2013 season with Washington. And in those 9 games, he has 1 goal and 2 assists for 3 points. He has 3 points in 9 games to finish up the regular season. Obviously, it's tough to go to a new team mid-season and immediately perform and play well right away. And that's not necessarily the biggest problem, but okay, he didn't have a great end to the season with Washington, but now it's playoff time, and we brought him in to try and help. Washington brought him in to try and help make a deep playoff run, and maybe go out and get a Stanley Cup. Washington's the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference that year. They play the New York Rangers in the first round. And Martin Erat only plays in 4 of the 7 games in the first round, does not have a point, 0 points, 0 anything across the board in the postseason that year with Washington. And the Capitals lose in Game 7 to the New York Rangers and are out in the first round. So obviously the trade already is looking like a fail as far as the Washington Capitals are concerned, because Erat did not help them at all offensively, didn't help them at all in the playoffs, and didn't do anything that he was brought in to do. But that's okay. He still has another year left on his contract. So 2013-14 season is going to be Martin Erat's first full season with the Washington Capitals. Let's see what he can do in a Caps uniform, not, where it's, a big transition mid-season, getting traded, and you have to adjust quickly. And now you have a full season with the Caps. 2013-14 season, he only plays in 53 games. He has 1 goal. 1 goal for the Washington Capitals in 2013-14. Now, he does have 23 assists in 24 points on the season. Still, that's half of his normal point total, and he has 1 goal. 1 goal and half his usual point total on the season in his first full year with Washington. And after that, he goes to the Coyotes organization for the next couple years, and then is quickly out of the league after that. Martin Erat did not come close to working out in a Washington Capitals uniform. He scored a grand total of 2 regular season goals with the Washington Capitals. 2 goals. Yes. Filip Forsberg, on the other hand, now let's take a look at the other side of this deal, which is Filip Forsberg, who went to the Nashville Predators and has gone on to become a perennial 20-goal scorer. One of the best offensive players in Nashville, one of the better young goal scorers in the league. He's 25 years old now, and this past season, in 63 games, he had 21 goals, 27 assists for 48 points. And this wasn't even that good of a season for Filip Forsberg. In the past, he's scored his career high in goals came in 2015-16 when he had 33. He's had 2 30-plus goal seasons. He's had 3 60-plus point seasons. Filip Forsberg was not NHL ready when the Capitals traded him, which is why I think they traded him for a guy who was supposed to come in and be a guy who would help the lineup now. He played 5 games with the Predators in the year of the trade in 2012-2013. Only had 1 assist, wasn't NHL ready. Even the next year, 2013-14, he only played 13 games in the NHL and only had 5 points. But then they let him develop. They let him continue to grow. And by 2014-15, he was NHL ready. He came up and played a full season. And in his first full NHL season, Filip Forsberg scored 26 goals, 37 assists for 63 points in 2014-15. In his next year, in 2015-16, he played all 82 games again. He scored 33 goals and 31 assists for 64 points, which is still tied for a career high. And he's really become one of the best players on the Nashville Predators, and is one of the better young goal scorers in the league. Like I said, he's only 25 years old, still has a very, very bright future ahead of him, and is locked into a long-term contract with the Nashville Predators. So, obviously, looking back on this deal, it was very one-sided, very, very bad for the Washington Capitals. Filip Forsberg, who was a very highly touted prospect, drafted 11th overall, has 100% lived up to that draft status, has 100% become a high-level goal scorer in the NHL, is a top-line player, and the Capitals gave that up for a guy who scored 2 goals in a Capitals uniform. Now, again, it's hard to blame the Capitals for doing this at the time because, like I said, Erat was a guy who could score 20 goals and 50-plus points on a season, and he had a very, very good career with the Nashville Predators, so it made sense. But Erat, once leaving Nashville, was never, ever, ever the same player again, while Filip Forsberg, who is much younger, has grown into being one of the better goal scorers. And imagine if Filip Forsberg was a Washington Capital, was still on the Washington Capitals. As your second line left wing behind Alex Ovechkin is Filip Forsberg. I mean, it's one of those deals that looking back on, it's bad. It is really, really bad, and it made sense at the time, but it was way too much for the Capitals to give up. Forsberg was one of their top prospects. I would not have given him up for Martin Erat. Erat was older and already, starting to decline a little bit. And he certainly, once he was never as good as he was in Nashville anywhere else. And he certainly was not good at all in a Washington Capitals uniform. And that turns out to, obviously, long-term, it did not hurt the Capitals too much as they've continued to have sustained success since this deal. But it's a really bad deal, when you go and look at it. And Michael Latta, who was kind of the throw-in on the Predators' part, was pretty much a career AHLer, played about a year and a half of NHL games, and was a fourth-line center, but for the most part was an AHL guy. So it really comes down to being Filip Forsberg for Martin Erat. And Erat did not turn out good at all for Washington, and Filip Forsberg has been fantastic for the Nashville Predators. So I just want to go back and look back on that deal because that is one of the worst trades in recent memory. Of the 2010s, that is one of the worst trades that we've seen. And it really doesn't get talked about all that much, and I think that's because the Capitals have survived making that trade. They're still a good team. They're still a contending team, and it didn't, damage the franchise long term. But, going back and looking at it, it's still a very, very bad deal. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.